no holding back, no stepping stones, no broken promises, no busy tones. Just what it takes, just make believe. No one belongs to anything. I've seen the lies, I've seen the lies, I've seen the lies. Train go by.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to The Lead Live. I'm Louis Amistoy. It is... What is it? Is it Leslie? Oh, wait a minute, Leslie. Is it Monday?
It is Monday and it's the 10th.
Oh, my God.
All day.
All day.
All day.
We are excitingly live this morning from the Riverside Nature Center. And I am on a webcam because I forgot to bring my correct tripod. So, Leslie, I don't know what that means exactly. I'm not very bright, I guess. I don't know if that, it's
I
Monday.
think it's Monday and you had a Monday morning.
Somebody's like, do you have everything you need? No, I don't. I don't have anything.
Pretty standard for a Monday morning.
It is pretty standard for a Monday morning. Becky Etzler, got to pick that microphone and talk to us. Look at you two.
I think it's already on.
Yeah, make sure it's turned on. Now just yell into that microphone.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you fine.
It's not like a-
Good morning.
Good morning, you two. I'm glad you're here.
I'm glad to be here. I'm glad you're here.
I am too, doing this music. We have lots of sponsors, but they'll get to them. Wild Birds Unlimited is here. They're a sponsor.
And they are
they
literally here.
And he's literally here. I got news and notes though, because it's Monday. The Super Bowl's over. The Chiefs lost, which I think is
And
a
the
good
birds won.
The Birds won.
Yes.
The Birds won that one, Leslie Jones. I think that's a good thing though, that the Eagles lost, or the Eagles won. Here's the reason why that's a good thing for us, because I wanted to say this, that there was a lot of conspiracy theories attached to Patrick Mahomes, that he gets preferential treatment from the officials. And look, he just got his head kicked in yesterday. There's no way around it. And they got beat bad. That was a beatdown. We haven't seen that in the Super Bowl for a long time, a beatdown like that.
I didn't watch the game. I just heard that it was bad. That's all.
And you know what? It was not a very. I mean, there was some interesting. I mean, defensively, it was a great game for the Eagles. I thought that the
for the Eagles, they had a great time. They won.
Oh yeah, they won. Yeah, they won. I thought for sure. Well, and so then you also have the distractions, right? So you have the Harrison Butker thing about his kind of weird sexist comments. Patrick Mahomes' wife is like a Make America Great person. Then you have Travis Kelce, who's dating Taylor Swift, and she got booed. Trump got booed.
Yeah.
Quite the spectacle.
Yeah. And then they had the halftime show. Kendrick Lamar apparently, outed Drake again, which you pay attention to, Leslie.
Yeah. I've enjoyed watching the Drake and Kendrick Lamar beef. I've really enjoyed. That was happened in the summer in May of 2024.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the Kendrick Lamar show.
Yeah.
And thanks for the free concert, bro.
Right. It was his concert.
But yeah, it was impressive.
Serena
Him
Williams
saying when he looked at the camera and said, "Hey Drake."
Yeah.
Beautiful. I aspire for that someday.
Serena Williams was crip walking.
Yes, there was a lot of very intentional digs.
There was, which is because she's actually from Compton, so that's
well,
okay.
she's also from Compton, but also like Drake heavily pursued her.
Oh, really?
Acted like he wanted to date her. Yeah, if you were a millennial, this is like super millennial core. He was like, this is when he was kind of coming up in the game, coming up in the rap scene.
Yeah.
And he wanted to date her, and then publicly dissed her. And so there was that, and like basically used her to like, that's why they're calling him a culture vulture. He's like, how he's used people and propped himself up in the industry.
Right. It was a very, that was interesting. They had a Palestinian, get in here right now, right there. Stand right there. Get right there. Get right there.
Gilbert's here.
Gilbert's there.
Good morning.
Good morning, Gilbert. How are you?
Little late, but sorry about that.
That's okay. That's all right. You were talking about the Super Bowl. The game was, like I said, not very interesting, but we were talking about there was a Palestinian Sudanese protester who's now facing charges because he snuck a flag in during the dance scene. The commercials were unmemorable. I didn't think there was anything that was memorable about the commercials. So it was good. But it was a busy weekend here in Kerrville, and I got to tell you, I went to 3 things on I guess it was on Saturday. We had a protest, right?
There was.
And very noisy protest. And then we had an art show. The Kerrville Art Club was doing at the Kerr Arts and Cultural Center. I forgot about that. I walked into it right as Lanza Teague was announcing the winners.
Perfect timing.
I know. And she was
Look
like,
at you.
and look, the media's here. I'm like, I'm here.
You bet, baby.
I'm right here. And then Lyle Lovett rocked or blew away
Arcadia
everybody.
Live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, here's the thing, right? Lyle Lovett is 67 years old. And some people were like, he looks 67. And I'm like, well, I think he looks pretty good. He's thin, he's fit.
What do
he's
they
funny.
want him to look like?
I don't know. But he wears a
I mean-
suit. He wears a suit, you know, and his band wears a suit. And gay over there. So. Good morning,
You're splitting them up today?
Yeah, splitting them up today. Yeah, you're gonna have to share microphones. And so it was a good show. I stayed for about 5 or 6 songs, and then I skedaddled out of there because I always feel weird. Like I never pay, you know, and they only like 2 or 3. They only like to be there for 2 or 3 songs. Most musicians.
Right.
So I was respectful, and I got out of there. But the crowd was crazy, though. It was the biggest crowd I've ever seen in Arcadia. The upstairs was completely full.
That's amazing.
They had standing room only seats all over the place. Jack Lamb was there.
Oh, out in the
Yes.
town?
Yeah, he was out on the town with a big white cowboy hat.
Oh, did you get pictures of him?
I did not, but he was he spotted some errors in the newsletter this morning. He was first thing this morning. He's pointed them out.
Of course he did.
Of course he did. That's Jack for you.
Keeping you
And-
on your toes.
Yes,
He
and
should
then
arrest you.
He should arrest me. Absolutely.
He's keeping a running tally.
You're right. And then what else did he do? Oh, well, the crowd was all the way to getting in, went all the way to Sidney Baker. So there was
that.
a line all the way to Sidney Baker. But he got
Love
out
to see
there.
it.
And it was interesting, though, because they've had a lot of big acts there. You know, Robert O'Keefe, they've had James McMurtry. But, I mean, I think Lyle Lovett is certainly the biggest they've had yet. Would you agree with that, Leslie Jones?
I mean, yeah. I mean, he's the only one that's I know of that's been married to Julia Roberts
That's true, yeah. He was
on the
married-
Arcadia
but-
Live
but-
stage.
We had Billy Bob Thornton. Saw him there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, I'd say Lyle Lovett's still a bigger musician than.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lyle Lovett is
Yeah.
a bigger music
Yeah.
act.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like Billy Bob Thornton is
right.
like I don't think a lot of people are aware of like his musical stylings. I mean, he's been
I'm-
doing that for a while.
Most
Yeah.
people probably shouldn't be aware of that either. So. Here, take this for yourself.
Oh, okay.
Put this on
Oh,
yourself.
I get it.
You get a little microphone there. All right, there you go. You don't get him on camera, but that's okay. Then I went to that. That was terrific, and we did a lot of stuff in the newsletter this morning. Vaccination rates in Texas have fallen. The exemptions. It's interesting. If you live in Idaho and you have a kid that goes to school in Idaho, chances are your kid will not be attending school with somebody who has been vaccinated. Almost 15% of the kids in Idaho have an exemption to have vaccines. In Texas, it's about 4% now, which is about 24th in the country. And guess what's happening, though, in West Texas? There's a measles outbreak, and measles is nasty. And we have another article that I'm going to have probably in another week or so that suggests that there is increasingly lack of confidence in science, and so people are not going to get their kids vaccinated. And I was doing some research on this the other day, and I was looking at the Kerrville Daily Times and the Mountain Sun from 1950 to 1960. There's 1,100 pages where polio is mentioned in that 10-year period. And remember, the great outbreaks of polio happened in like the early 1950s. And people were terrified of this, you know, and they were closely following the progress that was being made on this vaccination. And now it's people are like, oh, it's really bad. It's really bad. And they're really scared of vaccines. Again, I was scared of vaccines because I was afraid of needles, but I don't want that shingles stuff at all. So I'm ready for it. And I'm also looking forward to the vaccine for the Tawny Fontaine Jenner pox. So, right?
I think that's
You
more
need to
commonly
you need
known
to
as,
start
STDs.
You need
Yeah.
to start making better life choices if you
Yeah,
have tiny
right.
Fontaine Jenner pox.
Gonorrhea, maybe.
Right.
We're gonna have a talk after show
Yeah.
and plan a PSA just for you.
I know. I mean, there's just so many things with Tawny
Possibly
Fontaine
an
Jenner
intervention.
that are problematic.
I hope she disinfects the stripper pole that she
Yeah.
uses.
So while we're not vaccinated, though, a story that we'll have out later this week, probably maybe tomorrow, we will also discuss the fact that while we're not getting vaccinated, we're actually driving more safely in Kerr County. Shocking, isn't it?
Shocking.
We had a significant decrease in the number of traffic collisions last year. We still had 10 people die in crashes, but we had 917 crashes last year compared to the year before. We had more than 1,000, or the 2023, more than 1,000, which was
Wow.
a record. So there you go. Shriner, this is your last chance to see the men's and women's basketball team of the season this weekend coming up. You'll be able to see Camden Ross for the final time. On Friday and Saturday, they play Southwestern and Texas Lutheran on those 2 days. I can't remember which is which on those 2 days, but he helped them. He had a career night against Texas Lutheran on Saturday, 35 points, 10 rebounds to help them move to 16-5 on the season. And that's by far, this will probably be the best season in the university's history as far as men's basketball goes. Also, their football coach is no longer there. Kenny Trachetta has apparently left the program. I don't know the exact reason. We knew that he was ill before the start of the season. I have not seen him on campus since before Christmas, which is about the time that he was apparently ill. And I was told by several sources that they were Bill Raleigh, who's the athletic director, was basically meeting with recruits and telling them they were going to have a coach in place. I sent a note out to the university asking for comment. They said they don't comment on personnel matters and just to hold tight. So my sense is that they're making a decision. And ironically, on the same day, you can call it ironic, I don't know if it's going to be the case or not, but when you have to launch a program by the fall and this is now the fifth coach to turn them down, David Jones at Tybee resigned on Friday. And he gave 13 seasons there. I think his two kids are graduating this year. So he's done with his kids. So is this the time for him to go over there and step up and take over the Shriner program? I would think that'd be a good fit. They have a tendency to want guys that coach at the college level. But considering that they had 4 candidates that turned them down initially, I think 4 really well-qualified candidates, and then Kenny Trachetta, who I thought was well-qualified too, then that happens. I think you go with the David Jones to bring him in and run the show. He runs a college-style offense already, and interestingly enough, his quarterback for 2 years ago, Cale Lackey, is now on campus at Shriner playing baseball. So there you go. We had a ton of news on Friday. Oh my goodness! The day of the commissioners' quarters meeting, that should be terrifying to everybody. So there you go. All right, Leslie, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
You went
today?
to an event over the weekend. Do you want to discuss it?
I went to the San Antonio Zoo on Saturday with Sarah Tacey at the Hill Country Arts Foundation and Jenna Peterson, her husband Michael.
Yeah.
That
That sounds
was
like a wild time.
It was a wild time. It was like a singles event.
Yeah.
And I went with Sarah. She's recently finalized her divorce, so it was like a fun little outing. We really were disappointed we didn't see more animals. It was like late. I saw 3 lemurs. One was very upset about the party going on.
And they have the
They
ability.
basically had a DJ set up outside of his habitat.
They have the ability to crawl around.
Yeah, they have these runs. They have like their habitat because they only had half of the zoo open, so they had a habitat right there. Their habitat's right at the front, and then runs for them that you can like watch them. So and then flamingos, and I saw a 3-banded armadillo named Greta. She
Oh,
was
wow,
lovely.
nice. All right.
Yeah, they had like some zoo ambassadors visit us, and so one of them was, obviously they were doing, there's people drinking, so I'm sure they're not going to bring out like a tiger.
Right.
But we did meet their 3-banded armadillo, which was very cute. And she's 22.
Wow.
Really?
I know.
Wow.
Yeah.
The armadillo's 22 years old?
Yeah.
Is that like outrageously long?
Well, like in the wild, I think armadillos live like, it's like what, 10 to 15 years
Yeah,
sometimes.
it's not 22.
No, but that's what they say. Like in captivity, like obviously,
Right.
Well, they're well fed.
they're better cared for, so their life expectancy is extended. So Greta's up there, partying hard.
I saw a video over the weekend that I went down the rabbit hole of, where it was a lady, a Buddhist nun in China, and she takes care of a macaque who has one arm. This animal is actually Insta famous or TikTok famous. I don't know which one it is.
What's a macaque?
It's a monkey.
Oh, okay.
It's a tailless monkey.
Okay.
I guess it would be an ape, but
No.
no, they're not. They're monkeys, right?
They're
They don't have tails though. So,
Right.
but this monkey only has one arm, and fat as hell too, and likes to groom cats. So there you go. With that, Andrew
dream.
and Gilbert are here to discuss financial stuff. The penny is no longer going to be in circulation. Reaction.
Interesting. It remains to be seen if it actually happens, because even though he told them it's not an easy process for them to just stop.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
You'll see how that goes.
We'll see how it goes. Although there's been a lot of people for many years calling for
The penny to be.
getting rid of it. So
Yeah.
it's one of those things. It'll be around for a long time now. Whether or not they produce anymore.
He just said stop minting them, so that's entirely possible.
Sure.
I was glad to see that Becky Etzler had a nice supply of pennies and dimes this morning, because I had to unscrew something, and she had that available. So they are handy for some things. I paid for a video game when I was like 10 years old with pennies.
I paid with exact change this weekend.
Did you really?
I did.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right.
Well, I guess then there's no more DVDs or no more CDs for 10 DVDs, or was CDs for a penny? Remember, you used to be able to do that. Nobody does CDs anymore, but I remember that.
Right. Yeah, it was 10 CDs for a penny, and but then you were like trapped for like years.
Yeah,
getting that
the
stuff, right.
Columbia House
Right.
thing where you had to
Right.
buy all these.
Andrew, what's going on with you?
Nothing. You know what I was sitting here thinking about was this must be like what it feels like. Jerome Powell, we're talking about financial stuff.
Yes.
He's testifying
Yes.
tomorrow in front of the CFPB.
Right.
And I feel like this is what it would be like, except it's reversed. There's only one of you, and there's more of us. I feel like we should be interrogating you.
That's right.
Well, it'll probably be his last time interviewing with the CFPB, because apparently they're getting rid of that too.
Bassett, put a stop to some of their duty. Anyway, so like this week, so let's talk about what's happening this week. So we have inflation coming out Wednesday. That's a really big deal this go around, because this is the first peek at January's inflation. First time we get an inflation number for 2025. This is the headline inflation. It's not the Fed's preferred metric of inflation. This is CPI, not PCE, but nevertheless, that comes out Wednesday. Jerome Powell testifies tomorrow, and then we continue to get some more inflation data Thursday on the producer side, and then we get retail sales Friday. So this has remained to be a consumer story. The consumer is still making money; they're still spending. That's continuing to put upward pressure concerns on inflation, but it's still an inflation versus growth story, and it's basically been that. Or some version of that since inflation started to come down at the end of like 2022, when the Fed kind of slowed down their interest rate hikes. So I looked this morning. The chances, the chances or the probability that investors have baked into the mix right now that the Fed's going to cut interest rates is the first time.
Hold on to that for a second. You're looking at the thumbs down things. Is that you? No, I'm not sure how that's happening exactly.
What?
There's randomly, like if you were watching the feed while you're talking, there's randomly a thumbs down that pops up over your face, and I thought it was Lewis doing it, but he's not apparently responsible for it.
I don't know how that's happening.
Well, I was watching until I was talking. Anyway,
but
sorry, I didn't mean to throw you off.
No, you're
Because
good.
at first
No,
I was
lost
like, I was literally
this
like,
happened again.
Anyway.
Yeah. So.
Andrew, you get a
I'm gonna
thumbs up
add
from
to
me,
it.
man.
Oh,
Yeah,
wait, here we go,
I'm
here we
giving you
go.
all the thumbs up.
I'm gonna give you.
It's not on the feed. It's something else that I don't know how to fix. So who knows?
That's hilarious.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Andrew, because I was literally like, what is
That's
happening?
hilarious.
Also, why are you doing this to him?
I'm not. Trust me, I love Andrew.
Okay.
I just
Anyway,
don't know
so
what's happening.
inflation
apologize.
versus growth story. That's kind of
Yes.
where we're at. The investors think that we're going to see one more rate cut maybe come in June, but other than that, the rest of the year is the wager is that we're probably going to see one rate cut.
Okay.
So that's kind of where we're at.
And jobs numbers came out on Friday.
Yeah.
Apparently they were okay, but
Right.
they also did some upward revisions to some previous releases that they did, and it showed that those jobs numbers were actually much better. And so that put a bit of pressure on the market on Friday. A lot of the consumer stocks were down, a lot of the financials were down because there's concern again that it could mean that inflation's coming back. And of course, some of the news about tariffs over the weekend didn't help any, so that's been a bit of an issue. We'll see what happens, but it's an interesting time in the economy.
I think inflation's already back.
I would agree with you.
Yeah, I don't think it's gone away actually.
Yep.
And what's interesting is that it's no longer a talking point from the administration, which is one of the reasons why we think they won, because they're too focused on resettling South Africans or whatever it may be. But the price of eggs, though, is something we'll talk about here too, because we have Kevin Pillow waiting in the wings. Avian flu has wiped out millions of birds, and the other thing that's scary about avian flu is that it also can kill cats too. So it's a pretty nasty virus, but that has definitely. I keep seeing things that I can't believe are true, but some places where eggs are $8, $9, $10 a dozen, if not more. And this was an issue that people were screaming about when Biden was president. Your eggs are so high. Again, that was avian flu again. It takes several months for them to recirculate those or repopulate those populations of birds. So we'll see how that goes. But I would say inflation's right up there already. So
I would agree.
I would just say it never really went away.
Yeah.
And what we really feel is the 20% on average increase over the last since COVID, basically. Because when you look at the price basket, it was here, and now it's 20% higher than that across the board on average, right? And here we are in year 5, and we're still steaming from that.
Yeah.
We still feel that as consumers, and as long as we can keep inflation under around the 2% target, which is why the target is 2% for the Fed, and they can track that from one year to the next, it's just that it's going to relieve that pressure and that pressure that we feel from that big jump over 5 years. So if they can just buy time and track inflation for 2% for a year, it'll get better, but it's gonna take time, like years.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Do your disclosure, so we can make that
Yes,
happen.
sir.
Yes, do it now.
Okay.
Do it now.
I can't hear the music today.
It's all right.
Yeah,
Just
okay.
hum it to yourself.
Securities and investment
La, la,
advisory.
la,
Securities and
la,
investment
la.
advisory services offered through Next Financial Group member FINRA SIPC Texas Hill Country Advisors is not an affiliate of Next. This material is not intended as an offer or solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security or other financial instrument. Past performance does not guarantee future performance. All the views expressed are those of Andrew Gay and Gilbert Paiz and Texas Hill Country Advisors and not those of Next. The S&P 500 is a market cap weighted index composed of common stocks of 500 leading companies and leading industries of the U.S. economy. And the Dow Jones Industrial Average is a price-weighted index of 30 actively traded blue-chip stocks.
Here's some headlines reaction. McDonald's says their U.S. sales have dropped. Customers are spending less.
Not surprising.
Not surprising. I actually went into a McDonald's.
That
for the first-
we should label. You should read the headline, and we'll label it as inflation concern or growth concern.
Okay.
That's a growth concern.
Let me see here. Okay, that's a growth concern. All right, let me see here.
Sales slowing down,
let's see
less
here.
money made. in
Treasury
the-
yields flat as investors look to key economic data this week. Reaction.
That is, I would say, related to inflation, but it's not moving because the inflation data is coming out Wednesday, and they're waiting for it.
Okay.
Everything is tied into interest rates and the 10-year Treasury, so
Yeah.
it's an issue.
Trump says that U.S. may have less debt than thought because of fraud.
That's a policy thing. not related to growth or inflation.
Secret third thing.
Yeah. Now, you could back into that. Most financial markets will look at that and say, okay, what could the implications be? How likely is it to actually, have some kind of impact? Is it going to have an outsized impact? Because it's got to go through a bunch of filters before it gets. It's not a direct correlation where it's like, oh, this company's going to make less sales.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this policy thing. Well, what's the impact going to be? We don't know. And then they can back into one of the two stories.
Starbucks is giving away free coffee today. Label that one.
Growth. Because they're trying to keep market share. Because if they think we're going to go into a slowdown, they need to keep their sales flowing and keep people engaged.
Meta is doing layoffs today. 5% of the workforce, apparently. That's the target, according to the Wall Street Journal.
Growth story all day long.
And
cutting expenses.
And AI. They want to focus on
reinvestment.
Reinvestment.
The other side of the growth story.
Yeah. Okay. Let me see here. Aaron Brockovich is suing PG&E over a battery power plant. So there you go. That's
growth story. It would hurt their expenses and possibly their sales.
T-Mobile, Starlink to launch satellite-based connectivity in July for $15 per month.
Interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
I heard a lot about the satellite, or the I don't know. I don't know if I'm up to date on the terminology. The mobile satellite networks.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah.
We kind of talked about this.
Yeah. I'd say that's a growth story too, because
yeah.
There are places even in Kirk County where your phone doesn't work if you're not on the right network.
Yeah,
that's a growth story. That's an innovation.
Southway Street, Westway Street. Most of the South Kerrville.
Yeah.
Leslie, where does your phone not work at?
Sometimes not in Riverside Nature Center, but it's because of the roof. When I lived out in Kerrville South, I used to live out rurally in Kerrville South, and it's some dead spots out that way. Yeah. I'd say even heading out towards, like, Julie lives, going towards James Avery, and there's some spots out that way too. Just happens when you're in rural areas.
Yeah. But if your self-service is through Starlink, I mean, heck, you can make a call anywhere.
Anywhere.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Some grocers are keeping egg prices at record highs to slow demand.
I think you know what that one would be. That would be an inflation story.
Yeah. There was a question: why are egg prices surging but not chicken wings? Well, I think most of it is because of the chicken, the hen laying. The laying hens have been hit the hardest by that. As well. So
that's funny. I had chicken yesterday during the Super Bowl.
Did you really?
Yes.
Did you really? Who's that? Don't tell them to come in here and have a seat. All right, last one. And then we'll get you out of here. Let me see here. Let me see here. Anything else that why gold to $15,000 is entirely reasonable? What is that about?
I would say that might have elements of both, because gold is looked at as a safe haven asset. So in times of, oh crap, we're worried about economic growth, people will move to things like bonds and gold. Even though gold doesn't have any cash flow off of it, it's still considered some kind of safe haven tangible asset. It's a non-correlated asset. But then at the same time, there's also a school of thought that would tell you that because it appreciates, the rate of which is that's up for discussion, but it does appreciate over the long term, that it could be a hedge against inflation.
And it's more of a fear gauge in my mind.
Yeah.
People that are afraid of tangible currency, they flock to gold because they think at least that'll protect the value of their money. But the difficult thing with gold is you can't break off a piece of it and pay for your groceries.
Right.
It's not a easy means of exchange.
Right.
So
and it does not have any cash flow.
no, that's for sure. No, it doesn't pay
so
you any dividends or interest while you hold it.
It can't have the advantages of dollar cost averaging, and it can't compound. There's no compound interest because it has no
Not
cash
that you
flow.
don't want some. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having some, but gold right now is about $2,600 an ounce. For it to go to 15,000, it would have to go up more than 6 times.
Yeah,
and
that
sounds like somebody just trying to scare the heck out of you.
And here's a 10-year number. You want a 10-year number? 10-year on the Dow Jones is 146, 146%. S&P's 189, 189%. Nasdaq's 303. Gold over the 10-year is 139. So 139% return, less than all three major U.S. stock indexes over the 10-year. So even though that gold's been rocking it over the last year or so,
Right.
still trails the returns from the 3 major U.S. stock indexes.
All right. Good job, guys. Appreciate you guys
Thanks.
being
Thank
here.
you. Sorry for
You're-
being late.
You're cut loose.
I didn't know we were at Riverside today.
Get out. All right. Good job, you guys. All right, Becky Etzler, you got stuff going on today. What do you got? You got what? Like, you're always open here. This place is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Kevin, you can come on too. Come on
We
over here,
are
join us.
not open 24/7.
Yeah.
But we used to be 7 days a week, and then
Kind of unsustainable.
not. Yeah, it's so now we're closed on Sundays.
Yeah.
But we're here 10 to 6 every Monday through Saturday.
What are the
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about the challenges of the Nature Center and where you need to go moving forward. This is one of the gems of Kerr County, and I kind of think of it as kind of the heart of the River Trail complex myself. But
That's nice. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Well,
it's an anchor point on the River Trail, that's for sure.
It is an anchor point. We were the first trailhead.
Yeah,
And it has the trail itself has brought a lot of visibility to the Nature Center.
Yeah.
Over the years, and Riverside Nature Center has been around 35 years. Yeah, 35 years, I believe now.
Yeah.
And it's gone from a one-woman show who Susan Sander would pack the back of her car with educational tools, and she'd hit the road. She'd go to classrooms, and now we've got classes coming here.
Right.
And so where do I see us going? I mean, it's always growth. We're physically kind of constrained where we are right now. Could we, use a little more elbow room? Absolutely. Absolutely.
I just realized I don't really know your story about how you got involved. I don't know that story.
Yeah?
Do you know that story, Leslie?
It's not very
Yeah, parts of it.
interesting.
What are you talking about? Spit it out. Let's hear all about it.
Well, I was born. No. I'm an East Coast girl.
Where were you born?
I was born in Germany. I'm an Army brat.
All right, okay.
Yeah,
all right.
yeah, way back.
Right.
But
So we can strip your citizenship then, right?
actually, I had dual citizenship until I was 18, and
Yeah.
then
Then you said
it
see you
went
later.
away.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Girls, you didn't have to do anything. If you were male, you had to declare.
You had to declare for
But,
the military.
yeah.
Right.
So anyway, yeah. So I grew up on the East Coast, met a man who
Yeah.
happened to be a Texan.
Okay.
So that's
That's
why
how-
I'm here.
why
Got
you're
you
here.
back.
Yeah, why we're here. My husband retired, and we found some property, and we moved, and I realized very quickly that I knew absolutely nothing about Texas and the ecosystems or anything like that. I was doing what everybody does and tried to plant azaleas and daffodils, and realized that was just crazy. And so I got involved with the Texas Master Naturalists, and learned more about land management and stewardship, and that turned my head completely. I had been previously in career wise, it was veterinary medicine. I was administrator of several different hospitals, and I had worked in animal welfare.
So you probably dealt with some macaques in your time. Then,
Actually, I have.
have you really? Oh, wow. Interesting.
Yes.
That's
yeah.
another story altogether.
Yeah, that was a brief period of time in North Carolina working with in Winston-Salem, the big university there.
Duke?
No.
North Carolina State.
Oh, it's
That's
going
a
right
problem.
out of my head. Wake Forest.
Wake Forest,
with their
right.
medical
Yes.
with their medical school. Yeah. And a research facility out there. But anyway, yes, I did environmental enrichment for macaques.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Does that mean like you give them like food in a hidden bowl somewhere? or-
Yeah, and toys and ropes and all
Yeah,
kinds of things.
right.
Yeah.
Made
Right.
them work.
Made them
their
work.
brains.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah.
Becky.
But
I wouldn't mess with a macaque.
no.
Yeah.
But there's all kinds of different kinds of macaques.
Yeah, right.
But yeah,
Yeah, the snow monkey is a macaque.
the snow monkey's
Yeah,
a macaque. The
right.
rhesus monkey's a macaque.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
These are-
all
this-
kinds of
see?
stuff. Yeah.
I wish there were a few macaques running around Texas. Wasn't that the one that did escape in Texas at one point? They had macaques that were in some.
I think you're right.
Town, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
They were running around. Yeah.
Okay.
So that, real brief, that's my story.
Okay.
And I'm sticking to it.
But
So,
the Riverside Nature Center, though, you've been here for how long now? How long have you
this
been?
will be 10th year.
10th year.
10 years. Yeah.
10 years.
Yeah.
And Susan, our founder here,
Mm-hmm.
she moved back to, where was it, Wisconsin?
She's in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did
Yes.
she ever come back down to visit at all?
Yeah, she was here actually last year for the eclipse, and I'm on the phone with her constantly. I want to get her down here. I want to have a big Founders Day party,
Okay.
and so everybody can
Right.
That'd be really cool.
reconnect with
Yeah.
Susan, and
Yeah.
she can see what's happening. Yeah,
I guess she started off as a photographer for the Kerrville Daily Times. I think that was her.
she did. And Comfort.
Yeah.
I think Comfort News,
Yeah.
and stuff. Yeah. She was photographer. That woman was truly Renaissance woman.
Yeah.
She's, philosophy major and what else?
Made it happen.
Yeah.
Made this happen.
Made this happen.
Reality.
Yeah.
But like I said, I think when I look at this, what you have going on here, and when I pull up or I drive by it, I think, what a great resource, what a great asset to our community. And it is an anchor point in this sort of greater park idea that I keep having it's my fantasy. I don't know, I think others share it too. But, what do you hope for with the Riverside Nature Center? What is I know you talked about acquiring other buildings and expanding and
Yeah.
growing.
I think it's sticking true to our mission, and advancing stewardship, and I think we do that through education. And so I see Riverside Nature Center again being the focal resource for environmental education, and especially for our youth.
Right.
And we've got a wonderful pre-K, weekly pre-K program. I'd like to see in the future that expanded and have some kind of nature school going on with Riverside Nature Center. Yeah.
If you're just joining us, we're joined by Becky Etzler. She is the executive director here at the Riverside Nature Center. We also have Kevin Pillow with us, and he's the owner of Wild Birds Limited, and he's generally well behaved. We have Mike Miller of the Texas Park and Wildlife Department will be joining us. Elizabeth Nyawo, is that right? Yeah. Okay, we got that. Almost got that right. She'll be here shortly. She's here, and then the mayor will show up, and we'll have lots of questions for the mayor about the 2050 plan. Becky, what is the hidden gem of this facility in your estimation?
What is the hidden gem?
Yeah.
The volunteers.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we could not survive
Yeah.
without a wonderful, talented core of volunteers.
And how many volunteers do you have? How many do you need, or are you at do you have enough? Or do you have too many?
Never have enough.
Never have enough.
Never have enough.
Yeah.
I think there's a core group of probably close to 100, but that's including people that I count on for maybe one annual event, but I know I can count on them for that event. But there's probably about maybe 30 that keep us rocking and rolling on a daily basis. But talent, we're always looking for talent.
Yeah.
To help us, docent, greet people, photography, writing grants, helping us with social media. I mean, all of these things. There's only actually 5 staff members, and myself and China are the only full-time people.
Okay.
And so the other 3 are part-time, and so we rely very heavily on our
And
volunteers.
somehow you got Leslie involved with the board.
Yes.
This
yes.
is the only board I've ever asked to be a part of.
Really?
Yes.
Because I value Becky. I also value this place.
Yeah.
But I work really closely with Becky because of my job, and then by way of that, I see you. It's hard not to fall in love with this place anyway.
Yeah.
But then also, whenever you get to see how, I think when you look at it through Becky's eyes, it makes you want to be a part of it even more. And
Well,
so,
thank you.
Truly,
Yeah.
you inspired me. And then working with her, and so when I said, "Hey, if there was ever a position open, I'd be interested," and she obliged.
I didn't oblige.
Well,
I
she
grabbed.
passed my name,
I grabbed
she
her.
passed my name along.
I think she meant a paid position.
And I've been thrilled. I was like, I don't know much about growing things, but I love critters and I love all this stuff. So I've been,
Leslie's a great ambassador.
I've been blessed to be a part of it, and now vice president, which is really just a fancy name to say. I just say I'm vice president, and Brian does all the hard work.
Right.
And I go, you're doing a great job, Brian.
I was a vice president on a nonprofit board for a long time, and then I became the president. It was a nightmare. So just be careful what you wish for.
Don't tell her that. Don't tell her
Proud
that.
to be a part of this organization.
The some of the events you've had here, and I there are astronaut that we had.
Yeah, you really liked that one. That was an awesome
Now I'm blanking
event.
on her name. What was her name again?
Jessica Whitner.
Jessica Whitner,
Lieutenant
right.
Commander Jessica Whitner.
I thought that Jessica Whitner represented things that make Connie Fontaine Jenner upset and worried, but she represented this idea that of how I don't. It was such a great conversation. It's one I wish we would have had, like just for girls.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
Just for the schools, for her to say, because
Yeah.
and even boys, I guess, could have heard it too, because it was so inspirational. But I mean, here she was, an enlisted, you know, member of the Navy, working on F-18s. She was a mechanic,
Yeah.
and somebody in one of her officers said, "Yeah, no, you need to be up here with us, and you need to go to school. You need to figure it out." And she failed that ACT test 3 times
Yeah.
before she got it. And she's one of the few enlisted personnel who started off as enlisted
Yeah.
ever to go into the space program. And I think it's a really amazing story.
It is. It is.
You
I mean,
know.
her, and you know what's interesting is that's a similar story. If we were to get a lot of women in science,
Right.
you know, together and who have excelled in their field, I think we're going to hear similar stories that, you know, yeah. That,
Because her science journey was, you know, tactile community. It was with the engineering of mechanics,
Yes.
mechanics of it. And I think what was inspiring though was that she saw education. You know, she was kind of like a dumb jock in high school. You know, she said, "I don't want to do school. I don't like it." You know, and had a really bad junior year, and that held her back. But it didn't stop her, and the learning kind of. And one of the things that is interesting with the military is that they require you to learn. You know, if you want to be a test pilot, you need to know. You need
Yeah.
to know the engineering behind it. You need to know the physics. You need to know the science. And to be an astronaut, the level of education she's got, I mean, she basically has 2 master's degrees. You know?
Yeah.
So I thought it was and I was like, how old are you again? Because she's like maybe 40, if
Yeah,
that. You know?
yeah,
And
she's
she has
young.
and she spent 5 years. She was going to stay. She was going to do a career as an enlisted, you know,
Yeah.
sailor, basically. So, very interesting story as well. But those are the kind of things that you do here. And what are some of the other programmatic things that you have that go on here at the Riverside Nature Center?
Well, I mean, I mentioned earlier, you know, our pre-K Sprouts program. We have monthly NED talks, our nature education talks.
Yeah.
We do just services for people who have questions twice a month on Friday. We have one-on-one with a naturalist where you can just come and, you know, sit down with one of our Texas master naturalists and ask any kind of question that you may have about your own property or concerns or issues, you know, you're facing in, you know, your daily life when it's coming to, you know, just, stewardship.
Right.
But, you know, we have all kinds of special events. Of course, our Riverside fun run that we do in September.
Yes.
Twice a year we do native plant sales. This coming Saturday is kind of a typical special event that we would put on, but it's brunch with the birds.
Right.
And we're excited about that. We're kicking off the Great Backyard Bird Count that starts the 14th. Yeah, 14th through the 17th. And so, you know, 15 minutes, that's all you need. 15 minutes, go outside.
I saw 5 cardinals in my yard.
I've been watching
Yeah.
at least that right here.
I can't keep track
I-
because
Yeah.
I'm watching all
I
the
know, I'm
courtship
watching
behavior
as they
them all
behind us.
behind you.
As much as I love this room, this is
Yeah.
not a good place for a bird guy. I just keep
Yeah.
watching Carolina chickadees, just
Yes.
cardinals, like I don't know
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
many.
Yeah.
But they're all showing courtship behavior. I'm like, guys, slow down just
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah,
nice
it's
and
a
warm.
little early.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I mean, things that we provide opportunities for our community to come out, bond with one another over shared, interests, such as birding, but also, an opportunity to learn. I mean, this brunch with the birds is it's going to be fun. We're going to have brunch.
Yeah.
We're going to have mimosas. But we're going to have a silent auction to help benefit, costs and everything. But on top of that, we've got some really excellent speakers that are going to be here. We've got Chris Distel from Schreiner University.
He's delightful.
He's wonderful.
He
He
usually
knows
has
a thing or two.
Yeah.
that
He has
guy.
some critters sometimes too.
Tony Gallucci's going to be here. Wonderful naturalist Mark McClellan, great birder and enthusiast. Kevin Wessels is going to be talking about issues facing birds today. And then near and dear to all of our hearts is Crystal Ledesma. I mean, she's kind of, I think we all vicariously live through Crystal
I know.
and her worldly
Her
jaunts.
travels. Bird
Yeah,
Crystal.
her
Bird Crystal.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
make her come on the show once in a while. It's
So,
quite
it's gonna
I
be
adore
it's
her.
gonna be a fast and furious morning, but it's gonna be a fun
Yeah.
morning. And yeah. So things like that, programs that we have throughout the year. I mean, it's real easy to follow us, riversidenaturecenter.org. Check out our events and mark them on your calendar, and just enjoy.
Let's jump over to Kevin Pillow now.
Yeah.
Because he's got the avian flu update now.
I got the exciting
You
part.
get the same.
Yeah.
I was just looking at the numbers on
I
February.
asked Becky. Becky goes, don't you want to be the first one on that morning? I said, nobody wants to start with avian flu. Let's
No.
ease into avian flu just a little bit, because I do have definitely strong opinions and hopefully enough knowledge to quell some things. I brought Becky a few things here. Avian flu's, it's in the news.
Yes.
We hear it. We associate avian flu at our bird feeders with the price of eggs. And there's really a distinct separation between the two. And more than anything, I like to see people use all of the information. So that's why I brought Becky some QR codes from Cornell, from USDA, etc. I'm seeing a USDA article float around a lot that people have cut off. I get really frustrated with that, so I immediately put up the other half of the article. The USDA does not monitor feeder birds, or what we call songbirds.
Right.
So they monitor what our cattle, our beef, our farm birds, things like chickens, of course, turkey, and most recently ducks, which I'm learning a lot about. Their pathogens, because of the size of their feet, they can spread very easily. One of the reasons the duck population, we had that. So it's definitely something that's going on. We're learning daily how it affects things. But for the most part, avian flu is spread at these farms by game birds and their contact with humans through unhygienic practices, something we've hopefully learned a little bit about in the last 5 years. Wash your hands. And
you want to talk about safety in this place? Get out of here.
Exactly.
Come
yeah,
on,
I know.
What the heck are you talking about?
It's absolutely crazy. But
Here's some perspective for you, though, Kevin. On last Tuesday in Pennsylvania, a commercial table egg layer had to put down 1.9 million birds
wow.
in one day. In Texas, it's been limited for the most part. I have my little thing up here. There have been no commercial flocks affected by this, but there have been at least 2 or 3 backyard flocks, at least in Texas.
Yes.
So,
And
although
I believe if we follow that back a little bit, you'll find out those backyard flocks were also involved with some of the commercial operations, because it came from, I believe the first one that was confirmed was done by raptor attacks on waterfowl.
oh really?
A very easy, coots, et cetera, and things like that. The raptors do hunt. If you're going to forage for something for food, wouldn't you think a chicken farm would be a fantastic place to go and find that?
Easy pickings.
And they transfer that disease to the chickens, is where we see the large flocks. it is highly contagious
Yeah.
among the avians and also among humans who come in direct contact. It's not an airborne disease. It's not that. It takes a direct contact. And that's why we see a lot of the cattle farms, et cetera, do those things. There's just not a lot of really strong practices at the farm that keep those hygienics down. So the mass euthanasia of those birds will cause your prices, of course, of things like that to go up. It has yet to be determined what it'll do to our turkey prices come Thanksgiving, et cetera. But this is not new, you guys. It's been monitored really, really strong since about 2021.
Yeah.
And in that time, we're learning a lot. H5N1 that's our current strain that's modified 2 or 3 times, as all these influenza strains will modify. When it comes to backyard birds, we like to tell people, and you're going to see it over and over from some of the information that I posted on our website. I've also passed some on, I think, to Becky. I'm going to leave some things here for her with a QR code. Again, what I like about the QR code is it's not one-sided. It gives you a nice overview and an aspect to make your determination of what you'd like to do. We're not seeing it at feeder birds. We've seen a few house sparrows that have been affected. I believe there were 6 total in all of Texas. And those are English sparrows, which we classify as foragers, not really feeders or songbirds. That can be misused as far as the label is concerned. But those types of influenza can all be controlled at your feeder with good hygienic practices. Something we tell people all the time. This is not new, but I can't imagine. I can't imagine not cleaning my feeders in my feeder station. But it still amazes me that the people that will come in that have been feeding for 3 years to go, oh, I'm supposed to clean my feeders.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, a nice $5 bucket
Right.
from the Home Depot store or something like that you can drop a 9-to-1 bleach solution in, drop your feeder in for a few minutes, clean it up and put it out. Keep an extra one in the shed and transfer those feeders out and keep it clean. And my biggest point, something we've learned in the last couple of years, is to change your feeder station out, because if it is fecal-borne, if we find the fecal-borne, of course, birds lighten the load before they fly off.
Yeah, they
Many
do.
of you might have noticed
Yeah.
that. That's nature at its best.
Usually on a car.
Yeah, exactly. And it's cedar waxwing season, so it's purple car season. But that type of fecal-borne can get underneath your feeders and feeder stations where we group them. So if you can move your feeder station 6 feet, let the ground rest below, maybe do a nice rake, etc. in that area, let it decompose. It'll give you a wonderful area in that area,
Right.
or a nice growth area. And also birds plant wonderful natives. You know, what goes in birds comes out of birds in a
Yes.
nicely fertilized
Right.
little packet.
It's interesting though, like some of the things that we're reading about too, is that cats are also
Sure.
particularly susceptible to
Certainly.
contracting this virus because they like to take these guys down.
Yeah,
so.
let's think about that. Again, they're foragers like the raptors. They're hunting on easy prey. Easy prey can tend to be those birds that are already deceased. Cats don't always, very rarely, and I think Leslie can say this, cats love to bring you presents. They don't really eat these things. They tend to bring us all
They-
kinds of presents.
They
from
think you're
rodents and
big
bit-
dumb cats.
Yes,
and they're
but
bring-
they come
yes.
in contact. Yeah, they do come in contact with
Yes,
that.
they
And
do.
the easy catch is always the sick bird.
Yes.
There's no doubt about that. So, you know, we're seeing it in those birds or in those mammals, et cetera, that do forage on it. But again, it's not happening at the feeders as much as the news would let you to lead on. Feeders seem to be one of the safe areas. Our farm practices.
The
happen-
USDA does keep a confirmed avian influenza for wild birds
Are they?
database. Yeah. They found in Lubbock, they detected this on February 4th from a grackle.
There you go.
Which is a common grackle. I mean, aren't all grackles common anyway? I mean, is it
Yeah, there's
is
a
there a
couple of
difference,
different
like-
Picking up
versions,
a
but
big
common
grackle.
is
yeah, a common grackle or a parking lot HEB grackle versus Walmart grackle? What is the difference?
Common grackle is one of those. It looks good in books, so
Yeah.
they call them a common grackle as opposed to a lesser goldfinch. Which there's nothing lesser about a goldfinch. They're wonderful birds. It's just a bird that scientists use to distinguish the different ornithologists use.
California has had 5 in seagulls
There you go.
Yeah.
Yep.
Alabama, Minnesota, Mississippi, mallards, an American widgeon. These are harvested by hunters. A great horned owl.
Yeah.
Was a captive wild bird in Minnesota. So they do have it's kind of like, it's probably just a small snapshot of actually what's actually happening out there. Ducks, goose. Gosh, can you imagine what would do like that? Canadian geese, had a lot of, flu like that. I mean, they're so prevalent in
Absolutely.
the Northwest and Northeast.
And also their fecal matter, they're
it's like
thick and
poodles.
heavy. So yeah,
Yeah.
that transfer is really easy.
They're-
And again, nice big birds that when they do pass away, make a good food source for raptors who
Yeah.
can transfer that to
Right. Pretty tough. Even in bald eagles in Michigan, a couple of wild birds, wild bald eagles. They've seen this as well.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing more in those large raptors, corvids, etc. But just not at the feeder stations. And again, that can be controlled, even more controlled, I think, than ornithologists and science do. We just do it through our backyard.
What's going on at Wild Birds Unlimited these days? How's Isaac? I saw him forging something.
Absolutely fantastic. He went down to San Antonio this week and did a forging competition. They had 30 minutes. Forgive me, Isaac. 30 minutes to make what they call a blacksmith knife, which is a very simple knife that doesn't have a handle, etc., and a bottle opener in 30 minutes. And he got to do that with a bunch of his friends from the show Forged in Fire, if you've ever seen that one. A lot of guys that, they beat a lot of hot stuff with hammers is what they do. I don't know how they do it. But
He's a Renaissance man, that Isaac Dingler, isn't he? He's got it all figured out. He does the motorcycle stuff.
There's nothing Isaac doesn't do.
The birds. Yeah, I mean, he's got it all figured out.
He's doing a junior bird walk, I think, 22nd, I believe.
Oh, wow.
He's going to be over here with our Riverside Rangers.
Yeah, that actually sounds like a lot of
That
fun.
does sound like a lot of
fun.
I tend to leave Isaac alone on those things because he's much better than I am, but I'd love to watch the kids get involved.
You have a group
I
called
think we were
Riverside
shooting
Rangers?
We do. That's new.
Is
Yeah,
that
8
right?
to 12-year-olds.
Okay.
And so we're meeting once a month
Okay.
on the fourth Saturday of the month. And so each Saturday will be a different topic. So February is, birds. And so, Isaac's going to give us a hand, and we'll get these junior naturalists out there.
Really going to work hard. He's going to take them on a walk, I believe, and then also you guys have your loaner binocular
Yep.
program here. So the 8 to 12-year-olds, Isaac's.
Yep.
When you get Isaac and I talking about binoculars, we can get a little heady, but we're going to go through how to use those binoculars, how to properly focus, how to channel in on birds and trees, use your field of view.
Yep.
There's more to it than just putting them up at your eyes.
Yes.
So
Yes.
a lot more to
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm going to get off topic a little bit because it's kind of cool sitting in here. 20 years ago today, I did my very first program in this room. Not at these round tables. We just had the square tables. But I did my first program. Susan, and I believe it was Cass.
Probably.
Came to
Cass
me and
King.
said, Kevin, can you do 30 minutes on birdhouses? And I went, yeah, I can do that. I
Yeah.
can bring some birdhouses down and we'll talk. I had no real idea how to format a program, how to do much of anything. PowerPoint was just a fancy 2-letter word that I didn't really understand. So we brought houses in here for our 30-minute program. Susan stayed. We had a good group, probably 15 people. And I believe it was 3.5 hours later in typical Kevin fashion. We
Oh my
didn't get
gosh.
out of here. But, nobody
Jeez.
left screaming.
Yeah.
Nobody beat their head against the wall, so we had a good time. But 20 years ago today. in
That's
this
amazing.
room at
awesome.
Riverside,
That's awesome.
was
And
the start of our relationship with Riverside.
I was
So,
going to say the partnerships
Yes.
are incredible,
Yeah.
and Wild Birds Unlimited is a great supporter of Riverside Nature Center, and
Just a fun store to go and spend money to.
It is. It's a
I
great
appreciate
place.
that without question. But I also appreciate having a chance to use education as our format. I mean, that's been one of our biggest things. It's not just a retail store. It's a great retail outlet,
So
or a great information outlet.
If a bird just drops dead in your yard, should you
Good
alert
question.
the authorities? You think? Yeah, maybe there's some Texas.
Let's
Parks
say
and
yes
Wildlife
and
guys
let's
here.
say
I
yes
don't know.
and no. If you
Yeah.
have a concern, or if you start to see lethargy or some deaths in your
Yeah.
yard, then go ahead and remove your feeders. Give them the 10-to-1 bleach solution. Give
Yeah.
it about 7 to 10 days. one thing we've got to remember about removing feeders is that we create mobbing at other locations. So if you remove your feeders during stress conditions, which right now, watching the cardinals outside, mid-February, this is definitely a high volume time at feeders. So I would say use caution around them. Use gloves. If you have a bird that's deceased, go ahead and use gloves. If you'd like to report it, put it in a plastic bag. Never freeze a bird. We don't want it. Our inclination is to drop it in the freezer and save it. But what happens is the water molecules in their blood will crystallize and make it almost impossible to get a good sample to find out what's going on. Basically, you're just giving us a dead bird.
Yeah.
And that doesn't really help us too much. But more than anything, I think what Parks and Wildlife or probably your rangers would like to know is if you see a larger volume happening at your feeders, etc. The testing costs a lot of money. It's not inexpensive. And as much as we want to keep track of it here in Texas, we're not seeing the volume to make this a high priority issue right now.
Yeah, it has claimed, I was just looking at the data from the USDA, it has claimed 1.1 million birds in Texas.
Okay.
That's a drop in the bucket, though, compared what's happening in the Midwest, especially Ohio, where over almost 9 million birds have been affected so far.
Yeah.
And another, let me go back here, the total outbreak. Almost every state has been affected by this. California's lost 23 million birds. Sure. Ohio's lost 19 million birds. Minnesota has lost 9 million birds. I mean, this is during the whole, so it's a huge number.
Big numbers.
Big
And
numbers,
I don't know what the breakdown is as far as commercial farms and euthanasia. The fancy word for disposing of those birds as opposed to feeder birds and raptors and songbirds. My concern gets more with the raptors and songbirds because they're the ones that migrate. They're the ones that move.
Yeah.
We don't know the true gestation period of the disease, so we don't know how long a bird, once he's come in contact with it, can transfer it. But if you think about it, right now we've got things like orange crown warblers and yellow rumps really foraging heavy, because they're about to make their migration pattern. So they're going to leave here. So if they leave here and develop the disease and transfer it to, say, on their way up to Oklahoma, et cetera, in those areas, then we can really start to have those problems with the farms that we're seeing and get higher numbers for those rates. But it really breaks down when it comes to feeder birds. Just pay attention to your feeding station. Don't be afraid of it. Understand that if you remove those feeder stations, you can create other problems in other ways. I don't ever try to get in the middle of, say, don't remove or remove, because that's up to you as a bird feeder and as an enthusiast in your backyard. But definitely use caution. I mean, if you're concerned, keep a nice box of rubber gloves and wash your hands and clean your feeding stations as well as the area below it.
Yeah, wash your hands for crying out loud. My God.
How many times do we have to say that? Wash your hands.
All right, good job. Good
Stay
job.
clean.
Real quick, before we get back to our next guest, we throw Kevin out of here. I want to give a shout out, Leslie, to our friends over at Mattress World.
Yes, you got a pillow. You replaced your pillow.
I did, Leslie. It was awesome.
Proud of you.
My dreams have morphed from being nightmares to just being really shockingly annoying.
Oh, so back to normal.
Back to normal.
Got it.
Yeah.
Good.
Inconvenient.
Thank you, Mattress World.
Trapped in a gigantic warehouse of
Can't
people.
wait for him to
Actually, you were in one of my
horrify everyone
dreams,
with
Leslie.
those. Oh,
You were
God.
working in a cubicle, and I went over to visit you, and you were like, "Go away."
Were you sure that was
Cubicle
a dream?
Leslie would do that. Yeah. I will also probably see myself out with Kevin, so you can have your other two guests on.
All right.
I think they will have a much livelier
I'd like to
conversation.
know where my royalty check
And,
is for pillows. What is that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, you need
pillow.
to. We need
Yeah.
to.
Isn't there
brand
some
that.
law
There
somewhere?
should be something.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kevin Pillow, you need to have some pillows at your facility.
Gotta have something like that.
Kevin Pillow pillows. All right, good job, everybody. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank
all
you.
right.
Thanks, Kevin.
All right, next up, who do we have, Becky? Who's our next guest?
Mike Miller with Texas Parks and Wildlife.
Okay.
He is our district leader, correct?
That's correct.
Yes.
We could bring on
And then, we should bring Elizabeth up
Elizabeth. Come on
as
up.
well.
Come on over to. All right, let's see here. I have my notes here. Mike, tell us about yourself.
Well,
You're discussing deer and the game economy. This is good. I like this.
we can end up there. You know, my wife and I moved here to Kerrville 7 years ago as empty nesters. We've loved it. We love it here. But this is my 28th year with Texas Parks and Wildlife with the Wildlife Division. So it's been a real privilege. So moved down here as a district leader. So I'm leading a team of biologists here in the Hill Country now.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, those are the folks that are doing the real work. I mean, they're out there doing wildlife survey work and monitoring. It kind of helps shape our bag limits and season lengths, you know, for game species. But they're also on private land
Right.
every day, working with private landowners to help them manage wildlife.
Because the wildlife situation here in the Hill Country is unique. You know, I mean, people here will say they'll look at this and like every time people come visit me, they're just so shocked by the number of deer that we have. You know, like I have a little herd, well, because my neighbor feeds them, but I mean, I usually have anywhere from 9 to 10 whitetail in my front yard every day, and you know, it's just it's so routine anymore that I can't. I love it still after 5 years of being here, but it's still like I haven't hit one, thank God. So,
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm constantly amazed by it though. It never gets old to me at all, even though it's been 5 years. You'd think it would get tiring to see these deer in the front yard, but it never does. So, I get a little tired of their poop, but that's another story altogether. So,
But that's regenerating the soil.
I hope so.
So,
That's a positive outlook.
Yeah. You know, I was thinking about this the other day. You know, there's been a lot of discussion about, you know, fire safety, and I have to think that the heavy deer population has sort of kept some of that undergrowth down a little bit. Would that be accurate, inaccurate? What would you think about that?
Yeah, that may be a stretch, to be honest. I think they definitely have an impact on their habitat. My goodness, yeah, they'll eat themselves out of house and home, but they're not really grass eaters.
Yeah.
And really, what carries a fire is herbaceous fine fuels.
Right.
I mean, that's really what carries a fire. Now, once you have that fine fuel, it's going to extend up in the mid canopy and the upper canopy, or can bridge that. But yeah, I don't know that deer play that much of a role in reducing fires, or
Because it feels like that like where I live, they have tamped down. There's way too much fuel where I live, which always concerns me. But the undergrowth piece, either they've stomped it down, they've laid on it, because they're kind of jerks too. You know, like we had some nice, you know, salvia, you know, which are supposed to be deer. They just laid on it, you know, and crushed it. You know, they're just jerks. So they're like, oh, you think I'm not going to eat this? Well, I'm going to make it into a bed. Ha ha. So, I mean, what is it that's unique about this deer population, you know, that some people, I hear people complain about it sometimes, but I find it fascinating.
what's unique about it? I mean, there's 5 or 6 million deer in the state of Texas, and I think that this ecoregion definitely holds more deer than any other ecoregion in the state. Matter of fact, it's been said there's more deer in this ecoregion than any other state. But yeah, I think we get in a lot of conflict situations. You've hit on several of them, but you get in these subdivisions, and half the people love the deer. You know, they moved here from somewhere else usually.
Yeah.
They love the deer. They've named the deer that are visiting their yard, and they're feeders. They're feeding the deer. Then the other half of the residents realize they have a problem, and
Right.
they want to do something about it. So yeah, it's hard to reach that consensus to do anything about it. You know, to start
Yeah.
managing a population in a suburban or urban area.
Because we have a guy that has coffee with us. He's always complaining about the deer. He's like, I want them out of my yard. I don't want them in there at all.
Yeah.
How do I keep them out of my yard? I'm like, you have to just deal with it. They'll figure a way out. You know, they know how to open gates. I mean, they're really smart. But there is that balance though, because I know people that feel, and I feel bad because they come and they look at you.
Yeah.
They know. They're like dogs. If you come back from HEB and you crinkle, they come running. They know. You know.
Well, they've been conditioned.
They've been conditioned.
Yeah. Yeah.
and not by me, but by other people.
Other people.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
but is that good for them, or is that, you know?
Yeah, resist the temptation.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah, we shouldn't be feeding deer, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're just raising more deer or attracting more deer.
Yeah.
And increasing the problem in terms of what they're doing to your landscape and your plants.
Right.
Not to mention vehicle deer collisions.
Yeah.
Good grief. I mean,
Yeah.
I've already hit a deer since I've lived here.
And there's no predator here anymore, right? What would have been a natural predator for them?
Oh, an apex. Probably mountain lions would be a pretty good example. I mean, they're here, but they're not here in any numbers, to
Yeah.
actually do anything about a deer population.
Right.
But, yeah, I mean, obviously coyotes play a role too,
Yeah.
especially on fawns, sick deer. I mean, they play a role.
Yeah.
But
But you never. I mean, I never
Yeah.
hear. I'm a native Californian, and I've coyotes just were everywhere. You see them all over the place, and even in the urban setting, you'll see them. Here, I don't see them ever. So I don't hear them. I don't see them, and I don't know if we've done a good job of keeping them out or how that works exactly.
yeah, I don't necessarily see them here in town in Kerrville that much. I see a lot of gray fox in my neighborhood.
I do too. Yeah.
And bobcats are fairly numerous.
But a gray fox or a bobcat, they're not going to take down a deer, are they?
No, I mean bobcat could impact
fawn.
recruitment a little bit of fawn, but no gray fox.
Yeah.
That's definitely kind of out of their
Yeah.
league.
Yeah. Although I see cats once in a while, thinking to myself, I wonder what they're thinking. Like, I could take this cat. I could take this deer down. I could take it down.
It'd be the last time they try, probably.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah. We still, well, I find this interesting too. During the 2021 freeze, we saw huge death among axis and the black buck, but I've seen some significant axis, herds, and especially back behind the hospital. The black bucks still hang out there, so they seem to be getting hardy. Are they adapting pretty well to this environment still, or are they?
They're back.
They're back,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, man, they took it on the chin back during whatever you want to call it, Snowvid or whatever
Yeah.
creative name you want to call that. But was that 21?
Yeah,
Yeah.
21.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially black buck. But yeah, axis have bounced back now. And the thing about axis, they're on all the watersheds. They're on the Guadalupe, they're on the Pedernales, the Llano, and man, they have devastating impacts on
Yeah.
in those riparian zones in terms of plant recruitment and just erosion.
Because unlike whitetail, which is more finicky, they eat just about anything, right?
Well, they both probably start in the same place with preferring forbs, or what you'd call weeds that were growing in your yard,
Yeah.
But yeah, those and then they're browsers too, just like whitetail. But when they eat themselves out of house and home, yeah, they can start turning to other forage sources like grass and some other things that whitetails don't prefer.
Right.
Yeah.
Do we know how many exotics that have escaped that are in the ecosystem now? Do we know?
I don't even know I don't know what the answer would be there.
Yeah.
But, with some of these exotic numbers, we actually have more of a particular species in Texas than are what are found now in their native lands. It's kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah. Does Parks and Wildlife have to help with that part too of dealing with the exotics, or is that out of your guys' purview?
It really is out of our purview because by code, I mean, they're not really a wildlife species or a native wildlife species, but we all realize, the problems that they cause. But they're also, on the other flip side of that, they're pretty good for the economy. I mean, for landowners that they're doing a good job of managing for exotics. They're providing some hunting experiences and raising some revenue there that they wouldn't otherwise have. So.
Right, and they bring in, and there's all sorts of hooved mammals out on those ranches,
Yes.
right? And you can always tell it's like there's an exotic somewhere because they seem to eat down, or like it's grassy over here, and then it's just pure rock, where they've grazed down.
Yeah, you see that fence line contrast sometimes
Yeah.
from one property to another, or
Yeah.
from the roadside to
Yeah.
a pasture.
Yeah.
Yep.
But the deer, the things we have to worry about with the deer is the chronic wasting disease. What is the situation with that right now?
Yeah, we just finished a season where we were collecting samples and collecting a lot of deer data. But we're always sending those tissue samples off to A&M, and we've got a I think we're going through a transition now, statewide, regulatory wise, where you're seeing a disease that was fairly novel back in 2012 and not very widespread, and now it's pretty widespread in Texas. It's in 30 counties. Still, the prevalence isn't really high, and we know it affects certain cervid or deer species only. It hasn't crossed that species boundary to affect humans, thank goodness.
Right.
But we're still, as a resource management agency, we're very concerned about its impact to a deer herd. That's a $4.3 billion resource for the state of Texas.
Right. And that is a problem for so many people because it's a neurological disease, right? Is it similar to mad cow disease too, or is it?
It's in the same family of diseases,
yeah.
so it is neurological. It's always fatal. It may not be the ultimate cause of mortality for a deer because it sort of puts them neurologically, puts them in position to expose them to other mortality factors. So I don't know how many of them actually make it to the final stages of being symptomatic and showing signs, of classic CWD signs before they actually die. But
Right. When you see certain animals in the wild too, that I mean, I always look at the deer and I'm like, man, you are beat up. Like is that from fences? Is that from fighting each other? Is it from? I mean, what is the deal with some of
The
these
does
deer?
look particularly pretty mottled right now,
yeah,
but
right.
yeah.
Moldy looking,
Well, they replace their coats. They replace their coats a couple of times a year, so sometimes they look really poor then. My office is a mile down the road here, and on Mondays and Fridays, man, our phones light up with sick, dead and dying deer calls around here. So oftentimes it's nothing that severe. Either it's an injury or it's some sort of change in the hair code or something like that. But rarely is it something as severe as EHD or CWD or something. Like
My
that.
introduction to Texas, by the way, was removing a deer carcass out of my
There you go.
backyard.
Yeah.
And it was a deer that had, I think she had died giving birth, and because they found, Kerrville Alive helped find the fawns, but like I had never experienced. The reason why I knew that it was all of a sudden there was vultures like in my backyard. I don't have fences at all, so I was like, what the heck? And I go out there's this dead deer out there, and I have a pretty good setback, so I had to drag that body up to the road,
Yeah.
and I was like,
If you want it picked up.
if you want it picked up, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I had another one about a year later that kind of hid underneath by our back window under a bush and just died there.
Yeah.
I don't know what that was, but she had been dead for a while. When the smell got to us, I was like, what the heck is that smell?
We get oftentimes because people are down on the trail, and so they come up to us and say, "Oh, we see, there's a deer hobbling. It's injured one leg, and so you need to do something about it." And it's difficult because, of course, being at a nature center, we're very compassionate, and we applaud people noticing this and wanting to bring, attention and want to, render aid. But in all reality, if you call Texas Parks and Wildlife, or you call the game warden, or even animal control or the police department, every single person is going to tell you, if it's moving, if it's up, it can move, it can walk on its own, then leave it.
Yeah.
I mean, how many of us have seen it's the recovery power of these animals and the resilience that they can withstand an injury that would put us in the ICU, and give them time, and they're able to adapt.
They're survivors.
To these injuries. So, oftentimes, it's not a matter of being cruel or uncaring, because we'll hear, well, you need to do something, and that's cruel. It's really not cruelty to say, well, and number one, if we dispatch somebody out there, what you saw 10 minutes ago, there's no way to know where that animal is going to be, once somebody, actually gets there, if they're able to move. And so, it's a matter of respecting, nature in all its glory, and, render aid when you can, but oftentimes, just let it be.
We advise if the deer is up and moving, let it be.
Yeah.
Let it be. We don't want to see anything suffer, obviously. And if a deer goes down and can't move anymore, oftentimes, if we have a warden available, we'll dispatch a game warden that has that authority to actually put that animal down.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to take it to a rehabber. We don't take deer to rehabbers. We don't rehab deer in this state. There is an exception for fawns, but we generally don't rehab deer in this state anymore. We just don't want to move deer around. The risk is too great.
Because they don't react to it correctly, right? They don't.
Well, just the disease risk too
Yeah.
of moving deer around from
Yeah.
place to place is just not a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I look at these guys and I'm like, man, looks like they pulled an all-nighter, sometimes. My like thing is like when they die, I'm like, I got a great photo. I don't know if I've showed it to you or not, but of a hawk, a red tail, feeding on a carcass at
Shriner.
At Shriner.
Yeah.
So for the Bird City USA.
Yeah, our Bird City.
Yeah. I pulled up my car and I was like, we were looking at it. I'm like, what is that? And I'm like, oh, look at that. Unfortunately, I did not have my really big long lens.
Yeah.
But I had a lens long enough to, and he was pretty good,
It was a gorgeous bird.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
the feed on that thing was
Yeah.
incredible. You've been in this job for 28 years, you said? What got you into wanting to be in Parks and Wildlife?
Oh man, that's probably a longer story than I can tell. But yeah, I definitely didn't go to school to become a wildlife biologist, but it happened with my first year at school. So, I often tell people we're an equal opportunity employer. We don't just hire Aggies. We have people. We have biologists from Sul Ross and Texas State and Texas Tech, and it's pretty cool. Like sort of the mashup of personalities.
But
and
if you're going to go to a
experience.
Sul Ross, though, I mean, you're out there in a different, that's a. I've went out there for the first time, and I'm like, you're out there in the middle of it. You're in a very unique area. That was one of the most unique parts of the world I've ever been to. I think
It is
Alpine and that community out there. So I would imagine there's some great field opportunities that you wouldn't have at A&M or other places. I would think by going to Sul Ross. So it'd be very interesting to see. The Parks and Wildlife is a broad, big department, right?
True that.
We were seeing, some big spending on this is voter approved too, that helped us expand the state expand Enchanted Rock. That just happened.
Centennial Fund, I think is what
Yeah,
it's called.
yeah,
I'm not
right.
in the Parks Division, obviously, but that was voter approved, and man, they're putting it to use because when you look at over the past 25 years in Texas, we have gained, I think it's something like 1,100 or 1,200 new residents a day
Yeah.
in this state.
Yeah.
And they're looking for places to recreate.
Yeah, right. And there's some great places to do that too. Yeah, and I think that it's smart. And I always tell people too, like they'll say, I don't want you to California my Texas. I'm like, well, you guys are already there doing it. And it's smart to want to expand these facilities and these parks because one of the problems in California, when you go to a national park in California, it's impossible sometimes to get into them. There's a waiting list or there's a long line. I remember being in Zion, which is not in California, it's in Utah, and there was quite the line to get into that place because we have a tendency to love our parks to death.
Yeah.
And if they're not
true.
prepared for it,
Yeah.
it's a little alarming. So I haven't been to a national park yet that I thought was like, completely empty of people. So,
No.
yeah, not at all. But you're here, and you said how many biologists and people do you that work for you?
Yeah, we've gone through some realignment, but I have a small team now. I
Right.
got 10 folks that report to me, and we're just here in the Hill Country.
Yeah.
There's 11 such districts around the state. So
And what else do you do exactly?
Oh my. Well, I think I mentioned the fact that they're collecting a bunch of information out there
Right.
that we track. But I think the most important part of our jobs anymore is that landowner private land side of things, because we have landowners contacting us wanting help with managing wildlife. And when you look at how fast land is being developed in the hill country, I mean, we are being loved to death. Losing like 2 million acres in the last 6 years that were once in ag production in the state that are now urbanized, fragmented, developed. But we have these traditional landowners that are involved in ag and interested in wildlife. I think there's a growing number of reborn to the land landowners that are a generation or two removed from land ownership, and they have careers in Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, San Antonio, Houston. And they're moving back to the hill country and buying their dream.
Yeah.
And they're wanting help. And they're sponges. When you meet with them and you recommend things, they're generally going to do it. So you have to be careful what you recommend. Like, you want to make sure what you're recommending is pretty sound, out there.
That's like my friend who went to deer in his front yard. He's like, he moved here from Houston, and he's like, well, I don't want these things in my yard. They crap all over the place. They eat all my food. Or I'm like, well, then high fence and stop worrying about it. So interesting as well.
Go back to Houston.
Go back to Houston. Yeah, we like him. Elizabeth, we've kind of ignored you a little bit. I feel bad about that.
No, it's okay.
Now, here's the thing, right? We have the Texas Park and Wildlife Department, and then we have the Texas A&M Forestry Service. And what is it you do for the forestry service?
Well, we mainly help out landowners and property owners on how to manage their forests and urban trees. So more on forest health, management plans, stewardship plans
Right.
on their properties. Yeah.
Because that's going to be something that people are going to really want to. We're going through that here in Kerrville. We just passed a tree ordinance that has some teeth to it. And I think what's going to be interesting to happen out of the fires from California that people are going to talk about there is tree ordinances, because a lot of trees, once that fire got going, they had trees they probably shouldn't have had there in the first place. Like, who knows what kind of trees they had. They have a tendency to grow everything there.
Yeah.
And they caught fire, and once they go. So I don't know if you guys have ever seen eucalyptus tree burn, but it's terrifying.
Yeah.
So-
It's like gasoline.
Yeah. I mean, they have a tendency to kind of explode almost. So, I mean, I know that's something that people are talking about here. It's like, well, what's the best? How do I manage the cedar or the juniper, and what is the right thing to put in my trees, or to
Right.
manage my trees?
Right. So I believe the tree ordinances, their main aim is to push tree preservation. That way we don't go around cutting our heritage trees and.
Oh, we're good at doing
yeah.
that here. I'll show you one.
Yeah, so they're more of management tools. So they have guidelines on how you should take care of trees on your property, what you can cut out, what you cannot cut out, and permits that go around with doing that on your property. And in terms of what to plant as well, they also have guidelines on tree species and site selection, knowing what type of tree to grow in your area and what can actually adapt pretty well to the area you're in.
So if I'm here and I buy a piece of property, and probably the last thing I want to do is cut down all the heritage oak trees. I want to preserve those. But how do is there a way to protect them? They are susceptible to disease. Is there any way to help, keep those going, or what's the best way?
Yes, with oaks, that's a very good question, because right now we are in the big pandemic of oak wilt. So we mainly try and encourage most of our landowners to get education on the type of diseases and pests that are affecting our oaks. So when you have that information, you will know the right tending operations to do to your trees, knowing the right time to prune, and also knowing the right fungicides that you can apply to manage the diseases.
Yeah.
So we don't really encourage a lot of cutting and pruning of oaks, especially from the 1st of February all the way through June, because that's when the disease is mostly active, and
Right.
also when the bug that transports this disease is also pretty active.
Right.
And in terms of maintenance practices, if you do have to prune your trees, pertaining to tree risk and safety, then we advise that when you do your cuts, you paint immediately. And with painting, it's not cut, and paint. Yes,
Yeah.
you have to cut, paint, and then also sterilizing all your equipment with some Lysol, because if one oak tree had the oak wilt,
Yeah,
and
right.
you don't sterilize it, you're gonna take it to the next tree and the next. So it's pretty important.
So you want to make sure that when you hire your tree guys, that they are actually doing hygienic type work.
Absolutely. You have to make sure they're certified arborists. They would know the right processes to go about. And
Yeah.
funny you mentioned that. I did meet up with a landowner sometime last week, and she's like, oh yeah, a guy came through, was passing by the road. He's like, oh, I can cut your trees for you. I'm
Yes.
like, were they certified? And because they topped the tree. So you have to make sure you hire someone who knows how to do this stuff,
Yeah.
and they do it properly.
Right. Right.
And that's a common occurrence.
Yeah.
That around here is that somebody's in an outfit's in a neighborhood and they've got a job here, and then they'll go door to door, and say, hey, we're here.
Absolutely.
Isn't it? And it's like, oh yeah, I've been meaning to get this tree, and
Yes.
and yeah. So to know who you're hiring,
Yes.
know their credentials and capabilities is crucial to the health of the trees around here.
Yeah, and also it is a business, so I can push a sale to cut your trees and get more money. So make sure that you're getting someone who has knowledge on these trees and they're giving you the right advice. So it's not always about cutting the tree. There are many ways of saving your trees and protecting them other than just cutting.
And Elizabeth, I mean, and there's other folks in town, but if you have a question, can't they call you?
Yes.
And Elizabeth can go out and make an assessment of a tree before you go and hire somebody. I mean, so you've got a trained professional, making a professional assessment
Absolutely.
at no cost.
At no cost, yes.
That's a great service.
Yes, you can also go onto our website if you're not in Kerrville. If you put in your county, it will show you the forest nearest to you. And also in terms of certified arborists as well, we do have a vendor list of those qualified people. So you can also go on the bid list and check who's there and read reviews, reach out to them and find out if they're a perfect fit for you.
Are you based here in Kerrville, or are you?
Yes, I am
So you're
based
at
in
the
Kerrville.
over there by the Hill Country Youth Event Center, right? That little office there.
No, we're by the USDA
Oh, okay.
Research Center, the Insect Research Center, yeah.
Is that finished yet? Is that open yet?
It's getting there.
It's getting there. Slowly but surely.
Slowly but surely, it's
Yeah.
getting there, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I did see they preserved some of the Quonset huts.
Yeah.
So.
But what's really cool, though, Louis, is that we've got Mike and Elizabeth here with us today, and the resources that are available right here, in Kerrville. If you're a landowner and you have questions, and Mike
Yeah.
was talking about his biologist going out and working one-on-one with landowners. This is impeccable and wonderful services. I mean, and that are free of cost. I mean, there's just you make that reach out to these different groups. There's NRCS that's available. Riverside Nature Center is available. Kerrville and Kerr County, there's a lot available, and so in a sense, there's no reason for us to be ignorant.
Yeah.
I mean, because
True, yeah.
there's a lot of land management opportunities available to our community.
So if you said, like, I got some kind of critter in the tree, you call you and you at the same time. Like if I have a beaver, have we ever seen the beaver again, by the way? Has he disappeared?
It's still around.
Is he?
Yeah,
All right.
it's still there.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, so this is interesting though. And tell us about your journey at Texas A&M Forest. Now, if you work for Texas A&M Forest, does that mean that you have to be from Texas A&M?
No.
Yeah.
My story is pretty interesting. I'm actually from Zimbabwe.
Okay.
So I moved in from Zimbabwe to New York City, where I did work with an organic farm that did a lot of flowers, vegetables.
Okay.
And then as time went on, because I majored in forest resources and wildlife management, I wanted to do more for the natural forest and the environment. So hence I then gravitated towards Texas and got a job with Texas A&M.
Nice, nice. And how do you like Texas?
I love it. It's the climate is pretty similar to Zimbabwe.
Is
so
it?
I feel more at home here
Yeah.
than in New
New
York.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other day I was looking at the sky and I'm like, it's February. It's pretty warm than in other places at this time of the year. It's winter, so
right,
it's pretty great. I love it.
Yeah. And Zimbabwe would be like summer right now.
Yes,
right?
it's summer.
Yeah.
Summer,
So,
yeah.
that's great. A great story though. And so you've acclimated to our Texas. Do people back home in Zimbabwe think to yourself, "Oh, you're in Texas. What does that mean?" Do they think
Yes.
you're strange or?
Yeah, they always ask, you moved from New York? I'm like, yeah, I did. And Texas is beautiful.
New York is really loud and smelly.
Oh, yeah. Concrete jungle.
Concrete jungle. Yeah.
Yes.
Where'd you go to school at?
I went to school with the National University of Science and Technology of Zimbabwe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then then he came out here.
Yes, then I came
How
out
long
here.
have you been there at the Texas A&M Forest Service? Now?
This is my third month with
Third
Texas.
month. Wow.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a learning journey, and I'm loving it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you call Kerrville home yet, or do you?
Yes,
Do you
I
really?
do.
Oh, nice.
I'm in love with it. It's awesome.
Very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice. These programs, though, Becky. I mean, it's interesting though that you have access to all of this as well. So someone can call you and like you said on a Monday and say, "I've got a problem with deer." What would you say? Like, how did you deal with that? Do you deal with property owners that might have, "I don't want black buck on my property"? How would you deal with that? Would you just shoot them, or let's try to move them?
Yeah,
or?
I don't know that I hear that very
Yeah,
often.
yeah.
They probably welcome that, but again, these biologists are out in these individual counties or have these counties of responsibility. So we generally kind of send that request to the whatever respective place that they're calling from. That biologist can respond there, and like Becky was saying, it is a pretty good service because there is no cost associated with this. I mean, it's paid for on the backs of hunters, honestly, in Texas,
Yep.
because they're buying hunting licenses and then PR funding from the sale of sporting goods and ammunition
Yeah.
that comes back to the state. So that's really what funds our way.
Right. Right.
So, and plus when they go out there and make recommendations, the other side of it is you don't have to do any of it.
Right.
It's non-binding in nature.
Right.
So these are just some great ideas to help you meet your goals. Yeah.
Let's talk for a minute about two interesting ones too. Feral hogs are all over the place. They're almost as numerous as the deer, right? I mean, as far as like sheer numbers,
Yeah, they are.
and probably more destructive, and aggressive, and smelly, and large.
Definitely destructive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do they do for trees? Do they destroy trees?
I think they compact the soil more because
Yeah.
if it's a big herd, it just does damage to the soil.
Yeah.
And then also disturbing the root flares of trees. So
Right.
yeah.
Right. And the oak trees, like if you wanted to plant an oak tree, right? Deer like oak trees, is that right? The little seedlings.
Yes, they do. Well, we normally advise people to put a protection zone around any new trees that they plant.
Yeah.
So a cage, and also it has to be up to that height where the deer cannot get to it.
Yeah,
Because
right.
if you put a tiny one, they can still jump over
Right.
and eat your trees.
Yeah.
So
They're
yeah.
pretty aggressive when it comes to that, right?
They
So-
are.
Yeah.
And with the trees, you have to protect them for probably 2 to 3 years with the cage around them until the lowest branch is now higher than any level a
Right.
deer can get to.
Right. And then with the feral hogs, though, I mean, what kind of problem is that for wildlife?
I was on a place in Burnett County on Friday, and this wasn't an agricultural field. It was just it was just basically rangeland, and with some cedar trees kind of scattered around. And it had looked like, I don't know what they were after exactly,
Wow.
but they had rooted up, a 1 acre area in this pasture just basically overnight.
Wow.
Yeah, the damage they do is incredible. The main thing with them is they're just hard to control.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd basically have to harvest over half of the population in Texas just to maintain or reduce some numbers from where they are now, because they're so prolific reproductively that and so I don't know that we're ever going to keep up with that.
Yeah.
I saw a video once where they were shooting them. Of course, it was ridiculous. They had AR-15s and things like that, and it was like, but they scatter so fast, like
They do.
You know, we have a bounty
Yeah,
system
right.
here in,
Yeah.
in
That's right.
the county.
so their little tails, right?
Yeah, you can send in the tails, proof
Yeah.
and Soil Water Conservation District and UGRA, I think, are in partnership with that.
Right.
But
Even then, though,
even that,
it's tough because one, you don't want to get sideways from one of those things. Two, you don't want to. They disperse so quickly, and then they breed like that. I mean, they're like rodents.
Yeah.
Yeah, they wise up when you're trying to control them as well. Like, shooting is not a really effective means. I mean, it makes you feel pretty good about it, about what you're doing sometimes. But yeah, there's some pretty innovative approaches trapping wise to catching pigs now, kind of taking advantage of their behaviors, in the trap design and catching them that way.
Yeah, because you get like 35 or 40 at a time, right?
That's the way you want to catch them.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to catch entire sounders when you catch hogs.
Yeah, interesting. The other one too is we hear this a little bit, and I've read some stuff about this. There's two of them. The bears have been seen in West Kerr. One was killed, I think, on one of the highways out there by Lakey, and mountain lions. But I've read too that neither one of those have. Yes, they are around, but they're not necessarily repopulating anything. Their populations are very, very small. How would you characterize that?
Yeah, no, I think that's accurate. I think it's very interesting to see bears rebound here. They were here historically, but we would have an occasional guest crossing over from Mexico or from New Mexico into this state years ago. But now we have a reproducing population in the kind of what I call the Western Hill Country or Southwestern Hill Country. Definitely more common in Valverde County, Edwards County, and Real County. But occasional guests up here in Kimball and Kerr.
Kimball and Kerr, right. And mountain lions were probably very prevalent here at one point, but they have been hunted out probably or chased out for the most part. What is their status?
Yeah, I've never really seen any numbers or anything like that, but of course they're native Texans too, and they're around. They've been around. Not like the bears. It's not a matter of them actually disappearing and then coming back. They've been here. They just don't really exist in any great numbers anywhere, and very stealthy, very hard to detect. But we have a cat or two that passes through Kerr County here. I mean,
because most of them they can track most of them, right? I mean, they have.
That you can. Yeah, you can. I mean, there's not really. There's no season length and bag limit necessarily for mountain lions, so they can actually be treated different ways. I mean, they can actually be captured or they can be harvested, either one, by landowners. But I was saying though, that we actually have some resident lions that they have huge ranges, right?
Yeah.
So, but they'll show up on people's trail cameras and the doorbell cameras and all that stuff. I mean, we get bona fide mountain lion pictures every year in this area. So
one of my great regrets as a journalist was one of the papers I worked at. I was going through historic papers, and to show you how prevalent mountain lion hunting was in Southern California at the time, they had one day where they did like an organized hunt, and they got 60 or 70 mountain lions in one day. Can you imagine? Like this was like in the 20s and the 30s.
Yeah.
All right, we had a big hunt for the mountain lions. We got 70 of them. Like, wow.
And we wonder why we have so many deer.
Yeah.
They killed all those too, so it's all right. The Forest Service says, so if you're gonna plant a plant, try not to plant something that's going to explode. That's what we want to try to do.
Yes. Don't plant any eucalyptus trees.
Yes.
Definitely.
Oh, God.
Yes. But on our site, you can get a list of trees that anchor well in this area, and those that are not too hard, and also native trees. It's best that you continue to plant native trees. And I know a lot of people are not gonna like this, but also try and plant something else that's not an oak tree. Try and increase diversity in your property, not just the oaks. They're beautiful,
Right.
but then try and add that little.
Now, what about like shaping up and trimming up some of these cedar junipers? I think they're kind of pretty when they're kind of like taken care of a little bit,
Yeah.
Although they do feel like time bombs sometimes to me too, but.
They do, but I personally don't advise on taking out the junipers.
Yeah, right.
Because it's better to always have something holding on to the soil.
Right.
Because when we do get heavy rains, we're going to get all of that soil erosion and runoff. And also studies have shown that junipers help with the acidity in the soil. That's preferable for mountain laurels and Texas persimmons.
Okay.
They like that type of soil around the junipers. So when you remove them, you're taking out that property.
You got to look at all the consequences.
Absolutely.
And so I could come to you and I could say, this is what I want to do, and you would say, that's a terrible plan, right? You'd say, that's awful. No, don't do that. Try this. Okay.
Yes.
See, this is.
You want me to move over?
No, we'll kick them out of here.
All right.
Good job, you guys.
Thank you so much for
Thank you.
having us.
Thank you for being
I
here.
appreciate you
Appreciate it
coming.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. That was delightful. All right, the mayor's here.
Thank you.
Becky, this is a great show.
Yeah, not too
I
bad.
think we should do this once a quarter. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm up for it. Hello. Welcome.
Mayor's here. Hey, what happened to your hat? It's like I get a little bump over there. I just noticed.
That's my rain hat.
Oh, that's your
raining
rain.
over
That's
there.
your old one.
That's my old one.
That's
Yeah.
your old one. Your old open road. How are you, Mayor?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I survived the Super Bowl. I survived the weekend.
Was that this weekend?
It was this weekend. You did not watch it?
I did not.
I can't believe it.
I'm sorry, I didn't either.
Oh my gosh.
No.
I look forward to it every year. Some people hate the NFL. I love the NFL. So I enjoyed it very much. It was delightful. You wrote about this last week in the lead about the creation of. And this is not what you're here to talk about, but I want to talk about it anyway. So the creation of or Louise Hayes Park.
Yes.
And Louise Hayes Park is going to be 75 years old this year. One of the great community achievements in any community I've ever lived in. And it'll be with us for another 200 years, most likely. The mayors in future Kerrville will be looking at Louise Hayes Park master plans done, now, then, that history will be, this park will be with us forever. And I think it's a real testament to it. And I feel like this is part of Louise Hayes Park, the Riverside Nature Center. I feel like this is to me, I think there's a greater Louise Hayes Park. How do you characterize that park? Is it just the front of it? Is it just the waterside part of it, or is it the river trail? How would you characterize the park?
What I think is significant about Louise Hayes Park is they built it in a day, but they didn't stop building it.
Right.
They didn't go, okay, we're done.
Because your article talked about 52 and 54 and things that they did in those.
And even recently, the river trail's fairly recent.
Yeah.
The splash pad is fairly recent. The exercise pavilion's fairly recent. The park isn't static.
Yeah.
And, I went there when I was a boy, and there were some slides that were, 80 feet tall, and the temperature of the metal was 900 degrees.
Yes,
We
right.
thought it was great.
They were made out of recycled kitchen appliances from
It
World
looked
War
like
II.
it was very shiny.
Yeah,
And there were
right.
swings that were, I feel like
You could launch into space.
they were higher than the ceiling
Yeah.
here.
Did you ever jump off of them? Like,
Of course I did.
Yeah,
That's why
right,
I'm so
yeah.
tall.
Yeah, right. All right, monkey bars too that were like made out of
monkey
like
bars
spot welded to the ground.
And merry-go-rounds
Yeah.
where you could spin enough,
Yeah,
or suddenly the centrifugal force exceeded your ability for centripetal force. And
Yes.
Where were those? Those were.
And
those
we
were,
survived it
those
all.
Were in. Those were in Louise Hayes Park at one point.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, nice. Nice. It'd be nice to have one of those big slides to go down into the river. That'd be fun. We should recycle one of those. That'd be a lot of fun. All right, the 2050 plan though is being reevaluated right now, which is a common process when we talk about these things. Tell me a little bit about what's happening with the update of the 2050 plan.
well, as you know, a community has to have a comprehensive plan, or it cannot enforce its zoning laws or its planning laws. And so the state of Texas requires it. And this plan was adopted about 5 years ago, 2018, I believe, and it's up for review. The needs of the community have changed. The desires of what people want their community to look like have changed, and so it's time to update it.
Right.
And not only a general update, two special focuses are on the downtown area and on the Nimitz Lake area. And so a lot of the 2050 plan has been accomplished, but a lot is yet to go. It's like Louise Hayes Park, built in a day, but
Right.
it wasn't finished. It's still being worked on.
Right.
The 2050 plan is still being worked on.
And it's a good plan to have, and I hear because it involves so many people back in the day that it is it's treated reverently by a lot of people. Like, this is what we worked on. They remember that process of. I mean, there was lots of committees, lots of engagement. How would you characterize the 2050 plan impact on how you have governed the city in the last year and a half?
Well, I was elected mayor in May of 2024,
Yes.
like 8 months ago.
Yes.
And I ran with Kent McKinney and Brenda Hughes.
Right.
And we all three ran on a platform of supporting the 2050 plan. And here's why. That's what the community said they wanted their community to be.
Right.
And so for elected officials to decide, what the community wants is not as important as what I want. Unless it's something I want.
Right.
I think the three of us have repeatedly said we support it, and I think our votes have demonstrated that we do.
Right. The interesting about the 2050 plan, though, is that there is an environmental part of this as well. We just passed the tree ordinance. Some would say it was, Ken McKinney voted against it. He thought that there was really no need to change it. That the one that had it already was fine. What was that process like for you guys to make that approval on the tree ordinance, and why was it important to discuss it?
Well, the tree ordinance is basically for unplatted land. So if you're a developer and you want to come in here and put in a development, you need to preserve the trees that are on that property.
Right.
And I think a vast majority of our community would support that.
Right.
Here's why. We've all seen new developments come into town, and every tree on the property just pushed over.
Yeah.
And look, my family owns property that actually has trees on it, and some of those properties would be impacted by this ordinance. But I still support it because I think it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, because there's some developments we've already seen, where they've cleared land, and then it's like, well, now what are you going to do? Are you going to do anything? A lot of people ask that question, like, well, they cut down all those trees. Now what are they going to do? Like, we don't know. But this one will really impact future development and saying you need to evaluate protecting these things.
Yeah, and it's important to note that the ordinance does not affect private property owners, homeowners,
Right.
who have a tree that needs to be trimmed or has fallen over in a storm or is just in the way of that sidewalk they wanted.
Right.
They own those trees. They can do what they want to with those trees.
Right.
What we're saying is, as land is developed within the city limits, you are required to account for the trees and preserve a portion of those trees.
Right. Specifically the heritage trees that we have seen kind of be cut down in some cases. That's an important one for us to protect. But what else would the 2050 plan include as far as like protecting the natural beauty of Kerrville and Kerr County? You know, there's been some discussion about, does the city need to have a grading ordinance? Does the city need to have, other things to protect what we consider to be the natural beauty of the hill country?
Well, let's not forget that the 2050 plan, the document, is over 350 pages long. So I brought some notes.
Ah, look at that. He's got notes. You are a printer, by the way. So.
I am a printer, by the way. Here are some key areas of focus within the 2050 plan. Guadalupe River protection. The sure water quality, protecting riparian zones, and promoting responsible development near the river. 2, floodplain and stormwater management, incorporating infrastructure to manage flooding risk while enhancing the environment. 3, open space and natural habitat preservation, which is encouraging land use planning that preserves scenic views, native wildlife, and biodiversity. And finally, sustainability initiatives, promoting energy efficiency, water conservation, and community involvement in environmental stewardship. So it's not just trees. It's everything from the river to the hillsides to parks to
The sky.
the sky. How are we
Sky,
going
right.
when and if it rains again?
Yeah.
Where's
But-
that water
well,
going to go?
But our stars, our night sky.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we did pass a dark sky ordinance,
Yep.
and people think all sorts of things, but basically you can't shine your lights in someone else's window. Your lights can't trespass into someone else's house. And secondly, don't point them straight up.
Right.
Don't
Right.
point those lights straight up and dilute the vision of the sky.
And those are all significantly important things too. We've talked about that too. There's a night sky ordinance as well. We're trying to get Drew Paxton. I saw discuss this last week during the Planning and Zoning Commission, where they discussed the light ordinances and downlighting and the importance of that, so that we protect those night skies. You just can't really have a searchlight in your front yard. So, although I think it'd be fun to have a searchlight in your front yard. But the pushback on that, though, is from people like, well, you don't need to tell me what to do with my property, But in some cases, that doesn't mean that you're impacting others, and that's
Correct.
that's the reason for that. What's the next steps for the 2050 plan? There's another, I think, meeting next month.
Correct.
Where do you guys go from here? When does this get approved again from the city council? What's your thinking on that?
Well, we have had 2 open houses where citizen input has been received. The Planning and Zoning Commission and the committee on this 2050 plan update have been working. We're working with, as you know, a consultant engineering firm. What I've learned about city government, things just take time. So I'm sure there's a process and a roadmap that says what are the next steps and what those expected outcomes are, but I don't have it memorized. When it comes to the council, we'll probably have a fairly finalized document, and hopefully we'll have some community input, and I don't anticipate problems on the council in passing the newly adopted 2050 plan update.
What's your what is your sense of the Riverside Nature Center's role in this community's history and story?
I love the Riverside Nature Center. I was on the board of the Riverside Nature Center, and I was the one that actually made the motion to purchase this property. I was much younger then. And there was not this beautiful building one here, and of course the Arboretum one here. But I've been involved with the Riverside Nature Center since it was founded.
Yeah.
Back when it was founded at an old house called Riverside on Water Street, which is no longer there, but about where the River Guide complex is today.
Okay.
That being said, I was thinking about Riverside today as I was walking up. My late father, helped clear out a stand of cane and bamboo that was here. He had a fairly new tractor, which was no longer new when he got through, because it was a significant amount of clearing. And, I think my family's been involved here since the beginning. Susan Sander was a personal friend, is a personal friend.
Yeah.
When the kids were little, I would occasionally take them to breakfast. We would go get donuts, and we would generally eat them here in the Arboretum before school. So I have a long history of working with and supporting the Riverside Nature
And
Center.
enjoying this facility, that's for
Yes.
sure. If you took somebody, you had a visitor, would you recommend them coming here? Obviously,
Of course.
Of course.
When my daughter came for a visit recently, we came and looked at the fossils.
Yes.
Nice.
I kind of like fossils.
Yeah.
When my
Yes.
when my wife and I came to look at the fossils on display, she got through looking and she goes, "Joe, you really need to up your fossil game. You don't have anything."
You don't have enough. You don't have enough. All right. Well, it's been a delightful day to discuss this great facility.
Thank you.
And Becky, we're going to have to do this again, I think.
Yeah, like I said, always welcome here. Quarterly, if we want to do,
Yeah.
There's lots to explore. So
There's lots to explore, and there's lots to discuss. We haven't got to the geologist yet.
And I want to thank you for including me.
Yes.
well, no, I appreciate it. I mean,
Yes.
I think that there's a lot of service in this community.
There is a lot of service in this community.
And yeah, you're right up there.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Thanks a lot for joining us here. We'll be back tomorrow. Tomorrow, actually, believe it or not, we're gonna introduce the lineup or partial lineup for the Kerrville Folk Festival. So that'll be
nice.
announced tomorrow live on the show.
Nice.
And with that, we are out of here. Thanks a lot
All
for
right.
joining us. We'll see you guys again tomorrow.
No holding back, no stepping stones, no broken promises, no busy tones. Just what it takes, just make believe.